This is an impromptu meditation. I'm just going to go through the detail of mindfulness meditation as we do the practice today. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the steps of meditation that I teach. So we're going to start with what would be phase one, which is step one of a meditation practice, which is making sure we're not triggered. So again, in your own practice at home, you can do this by sensory stimuli, soothing music for sound, or the sound of an app of water or birds chirping or something. You can do this by scent, lighting candles you like the smell of, incense, things like that. You can do this through touch, soothing touch. There are a lot of different ways, but what you want to do is when you begin your practices, just make sure you feel safe, make sure you're calmed, that you're not in an agitated state is all we're doing. So we're using those phase one practices. There are multiple phase one practices we can use for this. So you can look at those on Introduction to Brain Chemistry. There are videos in the book and everything if you don't have them. The next thing we do is want to go into that centering state. And so we'll do that as well. The centering state is going to be where you're triggering the prefrontal cortex. So this could be where you're learning something new. It could be where you're using non-dominant hand. It could be body scan. We'll check in with a little bit of mindfulness practice. I'm going to give some options while we're going into the meditation. And then we're going to go into the third stage, which is an actual meditative state, which means an active listening state. The word meditate actually means active listening. If somebody says, I'm going to go meditate on something, they're not going to go sit in silence. They're going to go contemplate an expanded answer to something. And so this is where you expand and go into an observational state. And I'm going to treat this as a mindfulness practice. So it's going to be the first two stages of mythology practice in a mindful state. And I'm going to walk you through them, give you tons of questions. What I really want to do is, of course, the number one thing I get back is, I can do it when I'm with you, but I have a hard time doing it at home. So what I want to do is set up tools so that you can be able to do the practice at home. So we're going to go ahead and start that. So be comfortable. If you need to get up and move at all, you can. If you need, if you want to, there's going to be writing during the whole thing. So if you're watching live, grab paper and a pen before you start, or typing if you want to use a computer. We're going to be just going in, and I'm going to walk through the practices, give you a lot of detail of what to do in it. So we're going to start this practice by just, again, making sure that we're not in a triggered state, by just becoming more present. So we can do this by a deep breath, allowing the body to relax. Again, you can connect with smells by lighting candles or incense or essential oils if you like them. You can relax through sound by listening to the ambient sounds in the room or using music. Just using anything that's a pleasurable sensory stimuli. So we want to stimulate the pleasure response in the brain. Just coming into this moment, breathing into it. We're going to go into the next phase, which is centering. Now this is how you want to begin all your meditation practices, by first getting yourself into a sensory pleasing state as step one, and then step two is the centering practice. And so there are several different mindful practices you can do with this. You can do a body scan practice, which is just simply checking in with your body. You don't have to do anything specific with it. You can just become aware of your toes. So thinking of your toes, just one toe at a time. Thinking of the toenails, the ball of the toe. Making sure you go through all 10. You can think of the ball of your foot. Make sure you're checking in with both feet. Feel the arch. your heels. Becoming aware of the top of your feet. When you're doing this at home, you can go into a lot of detail. You can start checking in with the tissue, with the bone. You can go into as much detail as you want. But what you're doing here is you're shifting your focus out of your mind and into mindfulness by being fully present and observational of something. So now, as you're moving through the body, you'd go through the ankles, up through your legs. I'm going to move through the body scan quickly so I can give you a couple of other centering practices. So you can go through your whole torso, your arms, checking in with your spine, all the way up the spine, all the internal organs, the neck, throat, the face. So during the centering practice, you can focus on any amount depending on the length of time you want to do your centering. So if you're having a day where you began your meditation in a more agitated state, let yourself spend more time in the centering state. You can do this through yoga practices, through things like Tai Chi, again, through things like the non-dominant hand coloring. You can focus on your breath, becoming aware of the breath, noticing that the air is cooler throughout your nose and across the back of your throat while you inhale, and slightly warmer as you exhale. You can become mindful of the room by becoming aware of sounds. Noticing first the sounds individually, and then the way they come together. Becoming aware of sounds that you may not have noticed before you started meditating. Again, you can become aware of smells, tastes, touch by becoming aware of how your clothes feel against your body, becoming conscious of the places where your body comes in contact with the chair or the floor, feeling the temperature and the texture of the air in the room. All we're trying to do in this stage is to become centered and grounded. So for our meditation practices, for the meditation practices I teach, we don't stay in this space of being mindful or being present or being in stillness. We now want to take this and move this into developing that communication between the left and right hemispheres of the brain. So I'm going to give you a lot of questions you can ask. These are great notes to take to prompt your at-home practice. But questions you can ask to help you connect more with the space that you're using in your meditation. And the most important part of this process is articulating what you're experiencing. So to just meditate and go to a space, but not try to articulate and describe it, is not as deep of a practice. It's more of a traditional relaxation meditation. When you want to actually develop the brain into more advanced brain function and give it the ability to have access to this information, you have to develop the muscle. And so developing this muscle is about articulating what you experience. So what you're going to do is you're just going to let a place come to mind. The place could be anywhere. It's best if it's a place you've never been before. If you have been there before, think of it as a new day, a day where you haven't been there, a new experience you're having. Some of the questions that are good to ask in this as you do it at home, I'm going to ask the question so that you can note it. And then I'm only going to give you a minute or two to answer because I want to keep going on to the next question so that by the time you leave today, you have a list of questions to ask to help deepen your mythology practice. So the first thing you're going to ask is, what time of day is it where I am? So make sure you write the question if you want to keep a separate list, or you can write them all together. That way you can keep the question, what time of day is it where I am? And then after you've written the question, write the answer. So you can do a mythology right now on a different page if you want, or on the same one. It doesn't matter. You can transfer the questions later if you need to. You're going to answer the question, what time of day is it where I am? And if you're still writing, you can continue to write. But as you feel ready, the next question you want to ask yourself is, what time of year is it where I am? What season is it? To add to that question, you can ask, what is the weather? Do I feel sun or heat? Is it maybe raining? Is the wind blowing? The next thing you want to start connecting with is, I'm going to walk you through connecting with sensory experience. Different people are going to be adept at different senses. So some of them may be harder than others, but part of it being hard is what works the muscle. So you will get better at all of them. But initially, some may be a little bit harder than others, but that's okay. So the first thing we're going to do is sight. Looking around this place you are, what do you see? You can connect with colors, you can connect with whatever structures or plants or anything that's around you, so sight. What do you see here? Try seeing what's just in front of you. You can make a note that it's sometimes good to turn around in mythology and look at what's behind you. To just do a 360. It's a good way to go into the description phase. Try to describe it as detailed as you can. Like, try to capture difficult words. If there's a color you're having a hard time describing, this is what's really working that brain. And as you feel ready, you're starting to ask the question, are there any sounds I hear? Remember to ask the question, sound. Do I hear anything here? Do I hear the sounds of nature? Am I in a place where I might hear city sounds? It could be anywhere. You can be in a place that's mythological, that's has sounds you wouldn't expect. Again, trying to describe them. there a smell? Again, write the note. Check in with the smell. Is there a scent or a taste? They might go together. They might be individual. Can you smell anything specific here or taste anything in your mouth? Now the next one is one we can generally stay with it for a bit, which is touch. You're walking in nature, what does the earth feel like beneath your feet? Or if you're sitting somewhere, what does it feel like where you're sitting, or are you? Are you floating? And if so, what is the texture? What is the nature of the space around you? Is it liquid? Is it vapor? Does it feel more solid? Are there plants in your vision you might be able to touch? You can connect again with feeling. Is the sun shining? Do you feel warmth where you are? Or is it evening? Do you feel night air? Now finally the sense that we often can forget to check in with is the sixth sense, the internal feeling body. How do I feel here? Do I feel peaceful? Do I feel curious? How do I physically feel inside of my body? Am I relaxed? Very different thing to connect with our feeling body rather than our emotional body. A lot of times we really identify with emotions. This is time to identify with that internal feeling. How do I feel in this space? Make sure you include that in your questions, that you check all 6 senses. Now, as you become adept at meditative practices, this is the first level of mythology. And typically I would set up the scene and I'd give you plenty of time to just write this description. So this is a great practice at home to do as a meditation practice. So before we go into the next stage, what I want everybody to do is just stop for a minute, close your eyes, and check in with how you feel at the moment. What you're determining now is the brain function you've triggered. So just be aware of what's happening in your body, what's happening in your thoughts, in your feelings. Just really be aware. How do I feel right now? As you get more adept at mythology, the feeling should be a centered, grounded, present, peaceful, happy feeling. And our goal in this is to never come out of it. The idea of coming out of meditative states is a real missed opportunity to truly transform our lives. So instead, this is a state we want to sustain and carry with us as far into our day as we can. So again, when we're doing the practices, this is the state we want to sustain, is this calm, centered, peaceful state until it becomes our way of life. Thich Nhat Hanh says, meditation is not sitting in stillness. It is the change in perspective that happens from states of deep concentration. And so that's what you're doing here. You're concentrating on a sensory experience. Now, as you become adept at this, if you're doing it every day, you should pretty quickly be able to imagine a place and describe it. Now, to advance the meditative practice and keep it observational and not just a vacation spot, the next stage you want to do, the next question you want to, or opportunity you want to present yourself is, after you've described the space, you want to look around now and see what draws your attention. What direction do I want to go? Do I want to walk towards that tree over there? Is there maybe a treasure chest I see, or a trail I want to follow? You'll also, as part of that, there might be times where you're just walking on a trail or something, and that's fine if you feel called to go a direction. But if you find you're doing that and you're feeling ready to shift, like you're feeling like, okay, I'm not getting as much impact out of it, what you're going to do is look for a transition point. So this could be a door, it could be a cliff you jump off, it could be a vortex, it could be sometimes, again, turning around and looking at what's behind you. It can be a knot in a tree or a hole in the ground. I really like to do sometimes meditations in cities. Sometimes a city scene will come to mind because there's a lot of doors and buildings to investigate there. So I can go through a lot of transitions in a row, potentially. Each transition takes you into a deeper observational state because you don't know what's on the other side of that door. And so it's a good way to motivate deeper levels of the practice. So what I want you to do now is to look around wherever you are. And what I'm going to do is give you the opportunity to find a transition point. You're going to go through that transition point, and then I'm going to give us about 5 to 10 minutes, probably. Yeah, I think 5 to 10 minutes of writing at that point. So you're going to be looking for the transition point, and then you're going to go through the transition point. If there's anything in your life that you're struggling with right now, a good question to ask while going through your transition point is, and this is a good question to write down, is what is available to me in this situation that I'm not seeing? What is available to me in this situation that I am not seeing? And so what I want you to do is, again, look around for a transition point, a change of scene, so to speak, and then I'm going to give you about I think I'll do 5 minutes, and then I'll watch to see how complete people feel. And then we'll tie up with practices and then sharing if anyone wants to. Share. So again, looking for a transition point and then moving through that transition point, and just record what you find on the other side. You're just going to be writing what you experience once you get on the other side of that point. Silent time begins now. Just going through those questions and the practice the way we just did it. That's all you need to do. Just remember to always start. The most important thing is the state of mind from which you start, because if you're triggered, you can't go into that mythology. It just won't work, or if you're triggering the insula at the same time as the amygdala, it tends to give you more nightmare things than bliss. So if your mythology ever goes dark, you can just discard it and start again. You don't ever have to process anything. There's no shadow side you have to worry about. There's no emotions trapped in your body you have to worry about processing. You're shrinking the amygdala. You want to shrink the amygdala so that you don't have those fight or flight triggers. So make sure that you're in a good sensory place. So again, just making sure you feel good and safe. Doing the little bit of centering that we did. If you wrote those down, and then you should be able to do mythology from that place. And don't expect to be perfect at it again. If it gets easy for you, I'll change it. I change it for me. If it gets easy for me, I change it, because we have to be challenging the brain to grow the muscle. And so our muscles don't get stronger if we only use what's easy for us. So again, 20 minutes a day before bed is the best time to break most cyclic patterns. Some people like to write in the morning better, which is great too. The last 20 minutes before you go to sleep, the first 20 minutes before you wake up are the most important. But going to bed and putting yourself in a state of bliss, when your brain's going to sleep, if you're ruminating and stressed, your brain is going, oh, I've been being chased by tigers all day, right? I've been under threat all day. So it's going to just store that information to the amygdala. If you put it in a peaceful, blissful state, it won't store it to the amygdala. It'll start storing it to the insula, and one will grow and the other one will shrink. So before bed is a really good time, first time in the morning. First time in the morning is really good for creating motivation. Because when you activate the insula, that's where your motivation, your willpower, all of that exists. So you can activate those in the morning. Then you might have more. If you have a hard time at night, if you do it when you first wake up, you'll have more motivation throughout the day. So those will be the practices. This is the most important thing to recognize in these practices, because the practice is about using brain function the way to change the way you feel and think. So be really aware now, after doing this practice, what your thinking is like, how you feel inside, the effect that it's actually having on your life. So then you can relate it back. Oh, if I do my mythology, then I'll feel this way after. So, okay, I'm going to sign off.